short, now heaven knows anything goes.
Wait, hold on. Anything goes? Isn't that what's been happening in America for some time now? I think more and more Americans are waking up to this absurdity, and it shows by the overwhelming response we're getting with new volunteers. We hear and see you believe COS is the solution, as big as the problem. So thank you, and let's keep growing this grassroots army. Our vision is to build a strong, engaged army of self-governing activists, and our mission statement is to restore self-governance by recruiting, training, and deploying citizen activists to engage in all levels of government. So, if you've had enough of anything goes, join us every Monday at 7 p.m. as our state director and host, Dale Parrish, will show you how we can actually make a difference by using the Constitution to save the Constitution and our country. So join us now for Indiana Live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to COS Indiana Live. Thank you, Maringo Mike, for that introduction. I want to welcome everyone here. You know, just a little thought as I was watching Maringo Mike. We had put that intro together around to introduce it the first of the year, and of course we got once the new president took office, we got a huge influx of new members, and I thought, that'll probably slow down after a few months, and it did a little bit. And I thought, well, we'll need to do a new intro with Maringo Mike, but believe me, ever since his speech in September, we've had another influx of new members, new supporters coming into Convention of States. We think the president is doing a great job bringing in new supporters for our cause and our organization. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope more of you decide to do that. So I think we'll stay with the intro that we got there for a while. It seems to be appropriate. Well, let's get started this evening. As Maringo Mike said, my name is Dale Parrish. I am the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana. And first of all, I want to start off now. As you know, this year we've started every fourth Monday of COS Indiana Live. We're dedicating that to a roundtable meeting. So somewhat similar format, but expanded. And so the last one we had was September 27th, and it was a great success. We started this actually in June, I think, was our first one. So I want to thank you for that. As I said, we had great success with our September 27th roundtable. The next one coming up is not too far off. Again, it's the fourth Monday of every month. So the next one coming up is going to be October 25th, 7 p.m. And we're going to have as a special guest that evening, Mark Meckler is going to be joining us. Mark is the president, CEO of Convention of States. And Mark always has some things on his mind to talk about. And I think should be a very, very good experience to have Mark come on and talk to us. And I know he likes to take questions. So we'll do our best to open it up and entertain viewer questions. So that's October 25th, 7 p.m. Mark Meckler. Just want to remind you also that we're live streaming also to our YouTube channel, COS Indiana. Now, we also the broadcast mainly comes to you through our Facebook page, state Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana. But as I mentioned, we're also live streaming to our YouTube channel, COS Indiana. And if you're a YouTube viewer, be sure that you push that subscribe button, and so you can be a subscriber to our YouTube channel. And also, this year we started a COS Indiana Live podcast. So for those of you that will be listening to the podcast this evening, I want to welcome you to the podcast. I always forget to say that, because the podcast is in essence, it is the audio portion of our broadcast that's coming to you live right now. So for those of you that are listening, that will be listening to the broadcast via podcast, thank you for tuning in and welcome aboard. Enjoy having you. Now, if you want to listen to the podcast, go to this address. Go to anchor.fm/Dale-Parrish and the number 8. That's anchor.fm/Dale-Parrish and the number 8. And that'll get you to our podcast. Well, let's just talk briefly about the different segments that we have laid out for you this evening and what's going to be happening. Now, in our first segment, I call it the interview segment. Tonight, we have our super volunteer, Debbie Stewart, is going to be on hand. And tonight, Debbie's going to give us a civics lesson. And I think it's going to be a really good one. It's about our capital, Washington, D.C. So you'll probably learn some things about Washington, D.C. that you didn't know before. But anyway, that will be in our first segment coming up here with Debbie Stewart. Now, second segment be the information segment. And in this segment, then I bring up my PowerPoint, kind of go through some basic things about COS Indiana, what we're trying to do, how we're doing, how we're performing. And I got a real neat video for you this evening on an event that just took place last weekend in Wabash, Indiana. And I just won't say anything more about that right now, but we've had one of our people, Paul Phillips, put together a little video about the event, and I think you're really going to enjoy that. So that'll all be coming to you in the information segment. We'll also mention what we have planned for next Monday evening's broadcast. So that'll be in the information segment. Any viewer comments that we haven't seen up to that point, we'll try and take a look at them, try our best to get them on. So if you're watching tonight, either YouTube or Facebook, feel free to drop us a comment or ask a question. We'll try our best to handle those for you. Now, in the fourth segment, this is the contributor segment. We have certain individuals that we've designated as COS Indiana Live contributors. And I asked them, as a contributor, I asked them to make short, brief videos, pre-recorded videos, send them to me, and we package them up and present them as contributors in the contributor segment. We're going to introduce a new contributor to you this evening. Our own Dr. Dan Stock is now becoming a COS Indiana Live contributor. So we're going to premiere him this evening in his first contributor segment. So that'll be coming up in the contributor segment. Now, I want to warn you a little ahead of time here. We're having, I think, some internet broadband possibly issues this evening. I know we've got some weather around our area and south of us. So on these videos that we play for you this evening, the audio and the video may not quite be in sync. And I've done everything I know to do to try and correct that problem. I'm told that it could just be an internet issue. So we're going to blame it on the internet. Okay, we'll just do it that way. So be aware of that when you watch our videos this evening. Okay. Then the final segment this evening is what I call the invitation segment. We'll wrap things up, give you a little additional information on convention estates, and then I'm going to invite you to become a supporter. Invite you, and I'm going to tell you how you go about doing that, where you go, and what to look for. And I'm going to, of course, hopefully encourage you to be a volunteer and step forward and get more involved. Becoming a supporter for Convention Estates is a very, very important step, and that's the first step that we want you to take. For those of you that want to get a little bit more involved, got some time that you would like to contribute to our cause at Convention Estates, then I'll show you where to go to look for an area where you can contribute. So that'll be in the final segment called the invitation segment. All right. Well, let me get over here to Debbie's talking points to put up on the screen, and let me bring up Debbie, and we'll get started in our first segment here, the interview segment. So, hi, Debbie. Oh, got you muted there. Excuse me. There you go. Let's try it again. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Dale.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Sometimes it's best when we're off screen like that to be sure that we're muted so that we don't interfere with anything going on the broadcast. I just have to remember to unmute you. So anyway,
I appreciate that.
You do a lot better when we can hear.
I don't know hand signals very well.
I don't either. But anyway, Debbie, you're going to give us now, for those of you that might be tuning in for the first time. Debbie is our super volunteer. She comes on. we try to get her on at least once a month. And we've had her on for some time, quite honestly, giving us chapters in constitutional literacy. And then not too long ago, we added some civics lessons. So 1 month we do constitutional literacy, the next month we do civics. So this month it's a civics lesson. And Debbie, I'm going to stop talking here so much. I know your civics lesson this evening is on Washington, D.C. So take it away.
Okay, thanks, Dale. Well, I think if any of you have been to our capital, Washington, D.C., or you've read about it, I think sometimes in our mind we think, oh, well, it's always been that way, right? You know, the big buildings and the statues and the parks and all those things, but that's not the way it was. And so I'm going to kind of take you back in time to when it was just an idea. And we know that, just as an introduction, the capital is where a country picks a location and they plan a city to house what we have here, an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch. So we know the president lives in the White House, which back then it was called the Executive Mansion. Congress works in the Capitol building, and the Supreme Court works in the Supreme Court building. So each government chooses the capital at a particular point in time. And at the time when Washington, D.C. was established as the capital of the U.S., it was actually near the geographic center, because if you thought about the 13 colonies, it was kind of smack right in the middle, halfway down the coastline, right? And so they had the right idea, but as the nation got bigger and it moved further west and grew, it became further and further. Now, if you live in the West Coast, it's like a 5-hour flight. But it's interesting that 40% of the population does live within a day's drive of Washington, D.C. So that's
right, really? Yeah. 40% of the population.
And that's the population, because a lot of your eastern cities are very populated, and out west you have a lot more land. So that's the current statistic right now.
Do you know, Debbie, when was the White House constructed?
The White House was constructed and the Capitol building in the 1790s. And so we're going to talk about it. It was John Adams actually moved into the executive mansion in the year 1800.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was going to throw you off there, but you knew the answer to that.
Yes,
Debbie.
sir.
All right.
I'm thankful you asked the right question, Dale. Good job.
Okay.
The more you learn about this stuff, the more you realize you don't know. So, but so anyways, I'm gonna take it back a little further. By the 1770, Philadelphia was the largest city in the colonies. It was the trading center. It was centrally located. So that's kind of where a lot of the business was going on. The First and Second Continental Congress were meeting there in Independence Hall. And here the colonies had declared that they were separating from Great Britain, and Congress continued to meet there in Philadelphia. But in the year 1783, a mob of angry soldiers demanded pay from their duties. And so what did Congress do? They fled. So they fled to Princeton, New Jersey to get away. And they met there and in several other cities over the next few years. But in 1787, which some people know is when we had our Constitutional Convention back in Philadelphia, the delegates decided that the capital should not have to depend on a state if it needed to be defended by an army. So that's when they got the idea, okay, we don't want to make it in any of the 50 states. Well, there weren't 50 then, 13 counties, I should say. 50 now. So when the new government began, under the Constitution, the capital location was still undecided. So what they did in the meantime is they went ahead and made New York City the initial capital. And that's where George Washington was inaugurated as the first president of the United States.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay. He took his oath there, and Congress also met there. The federal government made plans to move to Philadelphia in 1790, so they went back there and to stay while the new capital was being ready. And in just a minute, we're going to talk about the planning, because while they're in Philadelphia meeting, the capital's being planned and built during this next decade or so. Okay, there was a lot of debate between the North and South where it should be. Everybody in the North wanted it further north. Everybody in the South wanted it further south. And in the year 1790, Congress passed the Residence Act, which said that the district had to be put along the Potomac River. And it authorized President Washington to pick the location. So he picked a couple miles north of his home, Mount Vernon, which was very convenient for him. All right. And then it's interesting, Maryland, Virginia both came forward and they said, hey, we want to give you some land. So they gave the federal government land, or it's called ceded. They ceded land to the federal government. So that worked out really well, but it was actually a swamp back then. So DC was kind of built on a swamp, and some of it still is kind of like that. The area now, Washington, D.C., is 68 square miles. Now, very interesting was, well, I'll get into that here in a little bit here. We're going to find out later that Virginia wanted to take some of the land back. So the next point is now they were planning. Who was planning the new capital? Well, George Washington appointed 3 commissioners to purchase and plan the district. And they named the district and the city in honor of George Washington for the city and Columbus for the district. So it's the city of Washington in the District of Columbia, just like Indianapolis is in Indiana. Okay? And that was done. They decided that September 9th of 1791 that they would name it Washington District in the District of Columbia. It's interesting, though, you know, they needed to find somebody to design the White House or the Executive Mansion and the Capitol building. So they had a contest. They had an actual competition, and the winner of each one of those actually got to design that building. So that's an interesting way to get the person. But it was very expensive to build for the Capitol building, so they only built the Senate wing at this time. All right, so that means that everybody had to fit into just the Senate wing. So the Supreme Court members all had to get a space at the Capitol building too, because there wasn't a Supreme Court building. Now, in 1800, that's when the federal government did move. The White House was unfinished at that time. The Capitol building was unfinished, and all there was a road between them and lots of mud. So on November 1st of 1800, John Adams, our second president, moved into the Executive Mansion, And the next day, November 2nd, he wrote to his wife Abigail, and he said, quote, "May none but honest and wise men ever rule under this roof." That's a great statement. We've gotten a little bit away from that lately. He also prayed and asked heaven to bestow the best of blessings on this house. So when anybody says our founding fathers didn't believe in God, this letter would prove them wrong. Mm-hmm. Okay, so on November 17, Congress held their first session in the Capitol building, and that's still the year 1800. And I told you the Supreme Court, they had to find space at the Capitol. So now with the buildings not finished and no Supreme Court building, they began business in the Capitol. All right, so you can imagine everything's unfinished and they're trying to figure things out, but they're trying to conduct business. So now I'm going to talk about what was the early life like in DC, because today we see a beautiful city and monuments and marble and buildings and just amazing things, but it wasn't always like that. Back in the 1800s, the city had a lot of difficulties. It was a small population. It was incomplete, and Congress moved very slowly. Some things never change.
Yeah, I was going to say, yes.
But in 1814, the city of Washington, this was during the War of 1812, was attacked by British troops. They set fire to the Capitol building, to the Executive Mansion, or the White House, and other buildings. And so it took several years to rebuild all those buildings and rebuild that part of the city that they kind of trashed. The people now, and so fast forward to 1847, the people of Virginia came forward and they said they wanted their land back that they gave for Washington, D.C. So they wanted to retroact the ceding of the land. Well, Congress said fine, and so they took back the land. So when they planned Washington, D.C., it was a diamond, kind of almost like a perfect diamond like this. So if you can imagine now, it looks like a diamond with part of it cut off. So it's about 2/3 still there, and then southern and mostly western part are gone. So it looks really weird when you look at the shape of it.
I was going to say, you said originally the Washington, D.C. was 60, did you say 68 square miles?
I think it is right now, is the way I understood it. But I'll double check that. But I was thinking that it's 68 now.
Okay, all right.
So that would be like 8 by 8 with a little bit more or something like that. But it's not a perfect 8 by 8. So we can check that though, just to see.
Okay.
Want to know what it is.
But you said part of it went back to West Virginia?
Yeah, it went back to Virginia.
Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep. It did. And then in this, just so you knew how it grew during the Civil War, there were 75,000 people there. They were starting to build a lot of buildings, growing to a bigger city. In 1870, they grew to 132,000 people very quickly. But what happened was by 1900, the Capitol was in really bad shape. The buildings were run down. Apartments and homes looked bad. They were shabby. And Congress didn't want to give enough money to make it look nice. There's a thought. And so they didn't want to repair it. So a group of concerned Americans called a movement called the City Beautiful Movement. They came forward and encouraged the government to provide enough money for parks, monuments, better houses, apartments, landscaping. They even limited the height of the buildings. You notice there's no skyscrapers. They limited the width of the buildings just so they could keep it uniform and not make it look like a major city, kind of like New York. So it's kind of neat. So today, in conclusion, what does Washington look like? Well, they have their own city government, and just kind of a couple fun facts. Most people know there's lots of monuments and parks and buildings, and the Washington Monument is 555 feet tall, and it actually moves a little bit in high winds. The residents of Washington, D.C. were not able to vote for president until 1961, and that was an amendment. And there's a system of private subways. Dale and I were talking about this before we started, little secret passageways between the Capitol building, underneath the building, that go to the Senate building, the House of Representative building, and the other Capitol, whatever other buildings are involved in there. So if you go visit and ask for a tour, ask them to take you underneath through the tunnels. Yep. There's an empty crypt under the Capitol building, and it was meant for George Washington after he died, but he chose not to. He chose to be buried at his home in Mount Vernon. And I just thought this was one more fun fact. that the dome, just the dome on the Capitol building, is made up of just about 9 million pounds of cast iron, just the dome.
Wow.
So you can imagine the all that went into that building. So, you know, our nation's capital is amazing. It's beautiful. It has so much history there. I just encourage people to go there. You know, if you can get there, take your kids or your parents and go see what your history really looks like from there. Yeah.
That's really great. You know, I think I told you this, Debbie, that as a kid, my parents took us to Washington, D.C. on a vacation. And we're talking, now this tells you how old I am, but this would have been in the late 50s. And we were a family that did a lot of tent camping on vacations. So we were able to camp in our tent in Washington, D.C. in close enough to see things like the Washington Monument and different things from our campground. Now,
Wow.
you probably couldn't do that today, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I can remember that was quite a trip. I remember my brother and I climbed the stairs of the Washington Monument. We climbed the stairs, went all the way to the top,
Wow.
and came back down. I guess you can still do that. I really don't know. I know that.
I know it's been closed some on and off.
Yeah. But yeah, it was quite a trip as a kid and as a vacation. So it was very, very, very much in my memory. So
I bet.
well, Debbie, once again, thank you very much. And I just checked the schedule. We got you coming back November 15th, I believe it is.
Okay.
And should be a constitutional literacy episode.
Okay.
So on the 15th of November. So Debbie, let me check the comments real quickly, see if anybody's got a question for you. Well, here's one person. It's not a question. It says just thank you, Debbie. That's from Travis Harrison. Travis is a new district captain.
Oh, okay. Welcome, Travis.
And I'm going to have him on. As a matter of fact, I've got him scheduled to come on November 8th. So Travis is going to be my guest on November 8th. So we'll have him on and get to meet him. Here we have a new region captain, Cheryl Shopmeyer, says good evening to you.
Good evening, Cheryl.
Another one of our region captains, Dale Tipton, says greetings.
Hi, Dale. I know Dale.
You've met him?
I've seen him. Yeah.
Jerry Rose saying hi all to everyone and saying good job, Debbie.
Thank you, Jerry.
Good job, Debbie. And Travis, he's really responding here. Looking forward, I think he's mentioning means looking forward to being a guest on November.
Right.
8th.
Let him be the next contestant.
So, well, good. We got some people looking in this evening and enjoy watching you, Debbie. So
thank you.
Once again, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, and I did want to let you know that the current area of Washington, D.C. is 68.3 square miles right now. So I'll check and see what it was back then.
Okay. I was thinking that it was in the 50s, but you could be right. So it started out to be larger.
Right.
And some of it got carved off to return to Virginia. So.
Those Virginians, I'm telling you, they're just Indian givers.
Well, of course, it's been in the news about making Washington, D.C. a state. That you know the news about that.
Yep.
But I don't think for the purpose behind what it's supposed to serve, I can't see that it could function as a state. I don't see how that could work.
Yeah.
So maybe sometime maybe that could be a topic that you could address.
You know what? I'm going to actually write that down right now because we talk about that, I think, in constitutional literacy, but I'm trying to remember. So
I was going to say that's probably would fall into there somewhere or another because it's a constitutional issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Maybe that'll be our next broadcast.
All righty. All right, Debbie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dale. Bye-bye.
Good evening. Bye-bye. Debbie Stewart, ladies and gentlemen. I always enjoy having Debbie on. She's always brings to us something very interesting for us to think about, and so enjoy having Debbie on. Well, let's get in now to our second segment, which is the information segment. I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint and get started here. So some of this I'm sure you've heard and seen before, but I always like to go over these types of things, even though run the risk of obviously being repetitive. But I want you to understand these things and remember these things, and the best way to do that is to repeat them. So our vision statement here in Indiana is the same as our national vision statement: build a strong, engaged army of self-governing activists. Our mission statement here in Indiana is to restore self-governance by recruiting, training, and deploying citizen activists to engage in all levels of government. So that's our mission statement. Now, these are the objectives that we set forth to try and achieve in 2021. I won't go into detail on them, but basically it's growing the grassroots, getting more district captains, more region captains in place, getting some younger people involved, education, and getting involved in legislation. All these things we've made tremendous progress in accomplishing. And I'm just going to throw in very quickly here, these are the new objectives that we've set for 2022. If you tuned in to our broadcast last week, you got to see that we reviewed our strategy meeting that we held in September, where we came up with these goals for 2022. And so you can see we're going to try and get even more supporters on board, more district captains, more region captains, legislation, and education. Those are the areas that we're going to strive. So Debbie has sent me a message that originally the District of Columbia was 10 miles by 10 miles, so 100 square miles is what it was originally. Okay, thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, how do I get back to where I wanted to be? And all right, okay. So anyway, that's where we are. That's what we're looking at trying to achieve in 2022. Okay, so you'll be as the year progresses and as we get closer to 2022, you'll be hearing more and more about how we're doing with regard to reaching those objectives and going for accomplishing those objectives in 2022. Resources that we have available to us here in Indiana, our main website, conventionofstates.com, state web page embedded in that website, Facebook, Convention of States Indiana. I won't go into real detail on any of these. YouTube channel, COS Indiana, very much an educational resource. We also download recordings of our broadcast to Parler, Rumble, Twitter, LinkedIn, a few other platforms. So we're involved a great deal in social media platforms. Podcasts, 2 podcasts, Free to Be Free and COS Indiana Live. State newsletter. I got to mention that we have a great newsletter that I think you will enjoy seeing. If you become a supporter and you opt into receiving emails, you'll get this every month as an email. But if you miss it, we also post the newsletter on our Facebook page, and we're also posting it on the national website, conventionofstates.com, and a few of the other social media platforms. So there's different ways to find our state newsletter. You need to look at that, folks. Our team does a great job. I always like to talk about our state newsletter. It's a great publication. So, few upcoming events that I'm aware of, and probably some that I'm not aware of. Like I mentioned, October 25th is our next roundtable meeting. Covered Bridge Festival, October 8th. Well, that's going on right now. Drive-in theater. Now, this took place last Saturday, and I've got a video that I want to show you about that. That was a great success. We actually rented a drive-in theater in Wabash, Indiana, the 1324 Drive-In Theater, and showed a movie, the movie In Search of Liberty, and gave out literature and talked to people about convention of states. I think you're going to really enjoy this brief video that Paul Phillips did, as a matter of fact, of the drive-in theater. So I think you're going to love that. Gun and Knife Show coming up in Sullivan, Indiana on November 21st. So again, folks, I probably have got some events that I'm not even thinking of right now. Some other things going on. We have different regions having breakfast meetings with district captains in those regions. Our region captains are really reaching out and getting leadership individuals together. Here's an invitation, our information tables, I should say, that we set up at Riley Children's Hospital event here very recently. So I wanted to show you some pictures of that. Next broadcast is October 18th, and I'm going to have one of our new region captains, Cheryl Shopmeyer, is going to come on and talk to you about what she has planned, what her objectives are for her region. She just got the promotion to region captain. She's really come on board and done a great job for us. So we made her a region captain, and she's got a lot of things planned. Well, now that's the PowerPoint. Now I want to show you this video of this drive-in theater event that we had this Saturday, and I hope you enjoy this. Once again, I want to remind you, the audio and the video is probably not going to be in sync. I don't know, maybe it will be right now. I doubt it. It's just one of those issues that we have to deal with. And I got a couple other videos this evening for you, and they're probably not going to quite be in sync. But I think you'll be able to clearly hear the individuals. Just keep that in mind, okay? All right, let's look at this. This is the 1324 drive-in theater event.
Recently, Convention of States volunteers Fred Dennison, Gary Ridenauer, and Shelby Ridenauer organized a free drive-in movie to promote the Convention of States. Here's Gary to tell us more about the event.
All right. Hi, I'm Gary Ridenauer. We're out here at the 1324 Drive in Wabash, Indiana, doing a awesome movie called In Search of Liberty at the drive-in. It's kind of our last hoopla for Convention of States. We have a lot of our district captains, regional captains, and state officers out here with us. So we're kind of hoping that, and the public's invited, so we're kind of hoping that everybody comes out tonight and enjoys a nice October evening. Got beautiful weather for this, so we hope everybody enjoys it and everybody has an awesome time tonight.
Gary, Fred, and Shelby selected the perfect movie for the event. In Search of Liberty is the story of a captivating statesman from America's past, none other than Ben Franklin, taking a modern-day family on a series of wild adventures, opening their eyes to the origins and importance of the U.S. Constitution. The free screening attracted over 130 patriots interested in learning more about the Constitution and Convention of States. In addition to the free movie, each person received a free copy of the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. A Convention of States information table was strategically placed near the concession stand with area Convention of States district captains and volunteers ready to answer questions, share Convention of States literature, and collect petition signatures. All in all, it was a perfect evening to celebrate liberty and our Constitution, as well as share the story of Convention of States.
All right. Thank you, Paul. I hope everyone enjoyed that brief video. That's a first for us, folks, to hold a Convention of States event at a drive-in theater. And, you know, when this idea was first proposed to me some months ago, I thought, wow, man, you know, that's a great idea. And there aren't too many drive-in theaters left anymore. Of course, I grew up at an era when they were very, very popular. But what a way to utilize a facility like that. And I hats off to Gary and Shelby Ridenauer and Fred Dennison, our district captains there, and for putting that together. So good job, folks. And apparently it was a tremendous success. I did get a comment here from, I'm just going to go ahead and show it, from Diane Jones. Diane's a district captain in currently Region 3 here in our area. And she's mentioning that Vicki, the region captain for that region, is sponsoring a booth at Auburn's Gun Show the first weekend of November. So that's an event. I told you, I'm sure I didn't have all of them. So that's an event that I didn't have on my list of upcoming events. So Diane, thank you for pointing that out to us this evening. So, okay. Well, I want to go on to our next, let me get to my other screen here that you can't see. Okay. I want to get into our next segment, and this is the contributor segment. And tonight I want to, as I mentioned earlier, I want to introduce to you the first of a new contributor that we have coming on board. And this is the new contributor is our own Dr. Dan Stock. So we're going to call his contributor segment, we're going to call his segment, What's Up, Doc? So I hope you enjoy it. Once again, apparently the audio and video is not quite in sync, but you'll be able to hear him clearly. So I hope you enjoy this. Here we go.
I'm Dan Stock, a direct pay physician and a district captain for the Convention of States. Direct pay physician means that all of my patients have a contract with me and they pay me directly. If you pay your doctor through an insurance company or a government program, do you ever ask yourself if you have a contract with him? Because you don't. But the insurance company or the government program does. And that program actually pays him much better if he sees 10 people for 6 minutes than if he sees one patient for an hour. And if he works for an accountable care organization, think of that as a large health network, he actually has clauses in his contract that tells him he can be fired if he gives advice that the government and the insurance company don't want, or if he doesn't give the advice that they do want. And they can actually control what he can study, and they can drive him out of business if they don't like what he's saying. You ever ask yourself, what would it be like if I could get back my insurance premiums and my federal tax dollars and pay my doctor directly? Do you think it would change the advice he gives? Most of my patients come to me because I give very different advice than the people who are forced in the other situation. Do I want you to distrust your doctor in a third-party payment system? I want you to like him. I want you to invite him over for dinner, play golf with him. But you might want to take into account, when you think about the advice he's giving you, who does he really work for? Does he work for you? Or does he work for the person he has that contract with? And maybe you'd like to see something change in your federal government so that he could work directly for you. I'm Dan Stock, and thanks.
All right, Dr. Dan Stock, hope you enjoyed that, and looking forward to getting more contributions from Dan. So sorry about that audio and video thing. I don't know how to correct that. I'm just going to blame it on the internet. Okay, I was told to blame it on the internet, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay. Well, let's get into our final segment, and this is the invitation segment. Got another video for you. Hopefully, this one will we won't have the audio and video problem, but because I've used this one before, and it worked fine. So let's see how this one goes. But now we're going to get into the final segment, the invitation segment. So here we go.
Talk about Congress. Hey, Congress is full of people who don't know what the hell they're doing, but want to control your lives.
The longer they stay in, the more connected they become to special interests, and special interests are destroying our nation.
They give each other what they want, and they stick the taxpayer with the bill.
What's going to happen to the millennials? Unfunded liabilities plus debt now is $144 trillion.
Politicians come in and say they're going to change it, and they never, ever do.
We're not going to surrender the greatest country on the face of the earth and turn it into another failed European experiment.
The question is today, will we use the Constitution to save the Constitution?
Our framers in particular foresaw that this day would come.
The Peach State is making history. Lawmakers passed a preliminary measure today for a convention of states.
The Missouri House passed a measure calling for a convention of states.
The Convention of States.
The Article 5 Convention of States.
Convention of States.
Convention of States.
Convention of the States.
How does the Convention of States?
Convention of the States.
The Convention of States.
Convention of States.
For the States Project.
Mark Meckler. Now you run a group trying to build a movement. You're saying the work is being done across this country to get to that 34-state threshold, and whether Washington wants it or not, the people hold a convention to limit the powers of the federal government.
It's right there in Article 5.
Article 5 of the Constitution was included by the founders for this exact time.
Where Washington would so depart from our principles
that only we, the people, could cut it down to size. So I think it may well take a convention to wake them up.
I've been a longtime supporter of the Convention of States to reestablish the sort of guiding principles of the Constitution.
The Convention of the States empowers the people of America to get some things done that they've long wanted.
By using Article 5 of the Constitution, we can pursue reforms such as a balanced budget amendment.
It's term limits on Congress, term limits on judges, and a balanced budget amendment for America.
It's becoming 11th state to call for a convention to limit federal government power.
The Arkansas House passed a resolution that calls for a convention of states.
30 states, Steve, 30, have either passed it in their state legislature or are actively considering it. So there is a pathway to that number.
Just literally nothing like this has been done in American history.
If you want to put government back in check, it's only going to be us, the people, do it.
And so this is the last chance I think we, the people, have to get back in the control of the constitutional reins of our republic.
Inspire them to make sure that we pass on a better America.
That is the next revolution we need.
No, we have to do this.
Governor Greg Abbott is calling for more states to get on board with a push for a convention of states.
Tomorrow we're going to work to make sure that we add the 13th, 14th, 15th, all the way up to the 34th state.
A year, 10 years, 100 years, whatever it takes.
If the federal government won't do it, then we will.
Go to conventionofstates.com, press the button, sign the petition. More importantly, get 10 of your friends to do the same. When you sign the petition, then that sends a letter to your state legislator. You go on the list in their district as a supporter. We deliver those lists to the state legislators. It means something to them.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. I think that kind of sums up what we're all about, folks. We want to see an Article 5 Convention of States take place. Article 5 describes how the Constitution is to be amended, and there are actually two methods to amend the Constitution. One is the method that has been used to date, and that's where Congress proposes amendments. But there is another method in Article 5, and that's holding a convention of states for the purpose of proposing amendments. So it takes 34 state legislatures to call this convention. And we have 15 that have stepped forward to call the convention. Indiana is, in fact, one of those states. We were number 6. So we need to get some more states on board, and we need to get to that 34 magic number. We're on the hunt on a number of states yet this year, so we could very easily get to that 20 mark by the end of this year. So anyway, that's what we're trying to do, and we want to hold a convention of states for the purpose of addressing our national debt, reining in the control of the federal government, and term limits. So that's what we're all about, folks. And let me show you here quickly what I need you to do. If you want to get involved, go to our national website, conventionofstates.com. Now, take that step, give us your information, your name, address, and so forth, sign the petition. That makes you a supporter. And that's a very, very important step. That makes you a supporter. Now, if you want to get further involved in Convention of States, then let me tell you what you need to do. At the top of the website there, you'll see a menu selection called Take Action. Click on that menu selection, then click on Become a Leader, and look at the different volunteer positions that we have available so that you can get more involved. These are leadership positions. Now, some of these require very little time. Others are going to require more time. You're the only one that knows how much time you have to devote to Convention of States. Now, let me mention one particular position that's very key in our organization, and that's district captain. We have in the area, we have in the neighborhood of about 40 district captains on board right now. There are 100 districts. These are House districts. We're based around House districts here in Indiana. There's 100 of them. So if you recall the objectives that we have set for 2022, we want to get to 60 in 2022. So take a look at that position. It's a key position, going to require some time on your part, but it's a key position for your particular district. You would be the Convention of States leader for that district. So take a look at that position, district captain. But if your interests lie in other areas, feel free to look at those. If you're really interested, go ahead and make application. You're not obligated in any way. Don't worry about that. But by making application, then your name comes up and someone then will be in contact with you to talk to you further about the position that you're interested in. So that's how you get involved in Convention of States. And those are the steps that you go through to get involved. And folks, I'm just going to leave you with one thought here. We want to make this happen. We want to call a Convention of States. It takes 34 states to make this happen. And this will be a first. You'll be part of making history. Making history. It's never been done before. Calling an Article 5 Convention of States for the purpose of proposing amendments. Now, I stress proposing amendments. Any amendment that's proposed that would come out of this convention would also have to be ratified by 38 state legislatures. Same ratification requirement as if the proposed amendment had come out of Congress. So the convention is for the purpose of proposing amendments. So folks, join us. We're going to make history here. And I think we're going to see it happen. We're going to make it happen. And we would love to have you join in and help us make this happen. So folks, I'm going to say that is it for tonight. And I want to thank you for tuning in. And remember, we're going to be back here again next Monday evening, October 18th. Going to have one of our new region captains on board that evening, Cheryl Schottmeyer, to talk to us about her objectives and to introduce her to you as a new region captain. So look forward to seeing you on the rolls of Convention of States here in Indiana. So enjoyed having you with us tonight, and thank you, and hope to see you again. Good night.